Okay, so imagine this, you're telling a story, right? And it's a funny story, it's a great story. You're about to get to the punchline,
Uh-huh.
and then suddenly
Oh, no.
you totally blink. It's like your brain just like crashed.
Like a blue screen of death.
Yeah.
We've all been there, right? Like, what was, I can't even remember what I was talking about. So today, on this deep dive, we're really going to try to understand what's going on. What is the science behind these embarrassing, you know, brain farts, especially when they happen when you're in the middle of a conversation?
It really is a universal experience, and it's so much more than just, simply forgetting something.
Right.
We're going to be looking at some really fascinating research, and it reveals some of the very surprising mental gymnastics that are going on behind the scenes when we lose our train of thought.
Oh, this is going to be good. Get ready for some aha moments, everybody, because we are about to uncover this hidden world of memory competition, sneaky mental distraction.
Oh, and even the impact of daydreaming on our ability to stay focused. Wow.
Absolutely. So one of the key players, I think, in all of this is something called working memory. Think of it as a mental juggling act, right?
Hmm.
But you can only keep so many balls in the air at once.
Okay, I like that analogy. So, like, if I'm trying to remember what I'm going to say next, and at the same time I'm trying to, listen and respond to what you're saying,
Mhm.
that's like my working memory is getting overloaded.
Yeah, exactly. And when those mental juggling balls, as you say, get to be too much to handle, well, inevitably, some of them are going to fall. And there was a study in 2014 that actually showed this happening in the brain. Researchers found that when two thoughts are sort of equally loud,
Mm.
they can actually cancel each other out. And that leads to forgetting.
Wow. So it's not just a feeling, it's like literally happening in our brains.
It is.
That explains why I always seem to blank on someone's name at the exact moment that I'm trying to introduce them to somebody else. Too many names, too much pressure.
Yeah, a classic example of working memory competition right there in action.
Wow.
But it gets even more intriguing. Did you know that even seemingly unrelated thoughts can secretly hijack your attention?
Wait a minute. So it's not just about like too many thoughts crammed in there,
Right.
but it's also about how those thoughts are connected to each other.
You got it. So there's this phenomenon called implicit semantic interference.
Okay.
And basically, it's kind of like having your internal monologue going rogue.
Yeah.
You're trying to focus on one idea, but then some related concept just kind of pops up, almost like a mental whisper. And suddenly your attention is being pulled in a completely different direction.
Ah, so that's why conversations go off on such crazy tangents.
Yeah.
It's like one word will trigger this whole chain reaction of related ideas, and then before you know it, you're miles away from the original topic.
Precisely.
Wow.
And even subliminal cues can trigger this. Researchers, they found that if you flash related words on a screen so quickly that people can't even consciously register them,
Mm.
it actually slowed down their thinking. Really? It's like our brains are constantly making connections, whether we realize it or not.
This is blowing my mind. I had no idea how much was going on under the surface.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see how all of these things could contribute to, these moments where we lose our train of thought.
Right, exactly. There's even more to uncover, though. Let's talk about how the very act of remembering can actually make you forget something else.
Hold on a second. Are you telling me that trying to remember something can actually make me forget other things?
Yeah,
That sounds like a catch-22.
it's true. It's called retrieval-induced forgetting. It's a fascinating quirk of our memory systems. And a study back in 2011 showed that when people focused on remembering certain words from specific categories, they were worse at remembering other words from those same categories later on.
Like when you're trying to remember everybody's name at a party and then you just end up drawing a blank.
Hmm.
Maybe that's my brain, like playing favorites with some memories and shoving the others into some forgotten corner.
That's a great way to think about it. It's as though our brains prioritize certain memories over others, especially when we're actively trying to retrieve information.
Wow.
Okay, so we've got memory overload, we've got these sneaky related thoughts, and we've got the act of remembering itself, potentially causing us to forget other things. I mean, what else is there? Is there anything else that can derail our train of thought?
I mean, is that not enough?
Well, there's plenty.
Yeah.
But let's kind of shift gears a bit here, and let's talk about the importance of focus, or rather, the lack thereof.
Or focus. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we all know how important it is to pay attention, but it just seems like these days our attention spans are shrinking by the minute.
Yeah, And there's research to back that up.
Yeah.
A 2003 study found that even brief disruptions to our attention can make it significantly harder to remember things afterwards.
I mean, think about it. You're in the middle of explaining something important, and then someone interrupts you with a question or a notification pops up on your phone, and suddenly it's like your brain has to like reboot and reload the entire conversation.
Exactly. Those seemingly, minor distractions,
Yeah.
they can create these significant disruptions in our mental flow.
Hmm.
And this brings us to a rather surprising culprit in the mystery of the lost train of thought, and that is daydreaming.
Wait a minute. Even spacing out for just a few seconds.
Right.
That can make me forget what I was thinking about.
Yeah, you heard that right. And it's not just any kind of daydreaming either. Researchers discovered that thinking about different places, even just imagining them, can actually impair your memory for recently learned information.
So if I'm trying to follow your brilliant explanation, but my mind is like wandering off to that beach vacation I'm planning, I might as well just kiss those insights goodbye.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but yeah, it's as if our brains treat those mental shifts in location, even imagined ones, as like a real change in our physical environment.
Yeah.
And that somehow makes it harder to access the information that was tied to the previous location, which in this case was our conversation.
I had no idea that those little mental escapes could be such memory thieves.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you think about how much effort our brains put into making sense of the world, both, real and imagined.
Exactly. And that constant processing, the search for meaning, it's both our greatest asset and sometimes, the reason we find ourselves saying, wait, what was I talking about again?
Okay, so we've got memory overload, we've got sneaky related ideas, we've got the act of remembering itself, we've got broken focus, and we've got mental time travel.
That's right.
All contributing to these moments where we go off the rails cognitively. It's like our brains are playing this never-ending game of mental hide and seek.
Okay.
But don't worry, folks, because it's not all doom and gloom. In part 2, we're going to explore some practical strategies that can help you win that game and keep those thoughts on track. I can't wait.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's true. Our brains, they can be quite mischievous, but, just like any good mystery,
Yeah.
understanding the clues, it can help us solve the case of the disappearing thoughts.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's put on our detective hats. How do we keep those thoughts from going AWOL? What can we actually do, to combat these memory gremlins and just stay on track during a conversation?
Well, one of the simplest but most powerful techniques, I think, is something I like to call cognitive pausing. It's basically about just taking deliberate breaks in the conversation
Okay.
to refocus your attention.
So not just like those awkward silences that we all try to avoid. Like
Yeah.
I'm supposed to actually embrace the silence.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these aren't awkward silences, they're strategic pauses. Think of them as mental pit stops. It's a chance to sort of check in with your own thoughts, make sure you're still on course. And it also allows the other person to process what's been said.
That makes a lot of sense. So instead of constantly trying to like fill the space with words, we can use those pauses to like gather our thoughts and make sure we're really present in the conversation.
Exactly. It's like hitting the refresh button
Yeah.
on your mental browser.
Mhm.
And you'd be surprised how much those little moments of stillness, they can actually enhance the quality of the conversation.
So it's not just about like avoiding those embarrassing brain farts.
Right.
It's about making the conversation better, more engaging, more meaningful. Okay. It's like, what other tricks do we have up our sleeves here?
Well, remember those mental anchors that we mentioned
Yeah,
earlier?
the mental bookmarks.
Yeah.
Remind me how those work.
Well, think of them as these like vivid reminders that you can associate with a specific idea or point that you want to make. It could be a keyword, a visual image, even like a physical gesture.
Yeah.
Something that helps you to latch onto that concept and bring it back to the forefront of your mind when you need it.
So if I'm like trying to explain a complex idea, I could like create this mental anchor, like a funny metaphor, some like silly image that represents that idea.
Exactly.
And that helps me to stay focused.
Exactly. So that anchor, it becomes like your mental lifeline, right? If you feel yourself kind of drifting off topic, you can simply just grab onto that anchor and pull yourself back.
I could see how that would be really helpful, especially if you're, dealing with a lot of information or a topic that's like particularly tricky. It's like a mental safety net.
Yeah. Now let's talk about those sneaky side thoughts, the ones that kind of hijack our attention because of, that implicit semantic interference. We can't completely eliminate them, but we can learn to manage them.
So it's like becoming more aware of those mental whispers and then gently sort of steering our attention back to like the main stage.
You got it. It's about noticing those tangents without getting swept away by them.
Yeah.
It's like saying to your brain, hey, I see where you're going with that, but let's stick to the plan for now.
That's a great analogy. It's like being the conductor of your own mental orchestra, making sure all the instruments are playing in harmony.
I like that.
Speaking of harmony, let's talk about those like mental leaps that can kind of disrupt the flow of a conversation. Like you're talking about one thing and then suddenly you're talking about something completely different.
Yes, those drastic context shifts. Remember how even those pleasant daydreams can create like a forgetting field
Yeah.
around the topic at hand?
So instead of jumping between topics like a mental kangaroo,
Yeah.
we need to like find ways to transition more smoothly and just keep the conversation flowing without losing the thread.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that conversations, they are dynamic, they're unpredictable.
Right.
But we can still kind of guide them in a way that honors both our own thoughts and the thoughts of the person we're engaging with.
It's like a balancing act. You got to follow those like spontaneous sparks of inspiration. But at the same time, you don't want to leave the other person stranded in a forgotten conversation wasteland.
Right.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is. But with practice, these strategies, they really can become second nature.
Okay.
And remember, it's not about achieving like perfect mental control.
Right.
It's about becoming more mindful of our own thought processes and how they impact our communication.
So it's about embracing the messy, wonderful complexity of our brains.
Absolutely.
And learning to work with them, not against them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And who knows, by understanding these quirks of our memory and attention, we might even discover some new and creative ways to, connect with others.
Yeah.
And to share our ideas with the world.
No, that's an exciting thought. You know, I've always been fascinated by the idea that our physical actions can actually influence our thinking. Like, could using hand gestures while I'm talking, could that actually help me remember things better?
That's a great question, and you're onto something. There's actually growing evidence that physical movements can act as these, like, memory aids. They help us to encode and retrieve information more effectively. Some researchers believe that gestures, they can help to ground those abstract concepts in our physical experience, making them more concrete and memorable.
That makes so much sense. I'm a total hand talker.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like it helps me organize my thoughts. It's like my hands are helping me sculpt the ideas in my mind.
Yeah, it's fascinating, how interconnected our minds and bodies truly are. And, think about it, even everyday activities like taking notes or drawing diagrams, those can help to solidify information in our memories.
So those doodles I make during meetings might actually be boosting my brain power.
Exactly.
I knew there was a reason I couldn't resist doodling.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
What helps you connect with the information on a deeper level and make it stick.
This has been so insightful. It's like we've peeled back the layers of our own minds and we've discovered this whole new world of possibilities. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final question for you and for everyone listening. Do you think that understanding these mental processes, can it actually help us become better communicators overall?
That's a wonderful question to ponder.
Yeah.
I believe that by becoming more aware of how our minds work,
Yeah.
of this intricate dance between memory and attention,
Right.
we can certainly become more intentional and effective in the way we share our thoughts with others.
Yeah.
We can learn to communicate with more clarity, with more empathy, and maybe even a bit more grace.
That's a beautiful thought. It's not just about like avoiding those awkward moments of forgetting. It's about using this knowledge to build stronger connections and to foster deeper understanding.
And ultimately, that's what communication's all about, isn't it? Creating meaningful connections, sharing our stories, and just expanding our understanding of the world around us.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an incredible journey into the inner workings of our minds. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing. You never know what amazing discoveries await you. It's kind of funny to think about, like those moments when our minds just go blank. Those little glitches, they actually tell us so much about how our brains work.
Absolutely. It's like we're getting a sneak peek behind the curtain,
Yeah.
of consciousness. We see those gears turning, the connections firing, and then every now and then we see these fascinating moments where the system just gets a little overloaded.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this backstage pass to the most amazing show ever, the one that's constantly running inside our own heads.
Right.
And now that we know some of the, tricks of the trade, we can really appreciate the performance even more.
And who knows, maybe we can even become better performers ourselves.
Hmm.
Because communication, I mean, it really is a collaborative art form,
Mm.
right? One that requires us to not only be mindful of our own thoughts, but also the thoughts and perspectives of the people we're engaging with.
That's such a great way to put it. So often we think of communication as just like getting our point across, but it's so much more than that.
It is.
It's about creating this shared space where ideas can flow, where understanding can emerge, and even those moments of forgetting, they can become opportunities for deeper connection.
Yeah, you've hit on something really crucial there. Those moments when we lose our train of thought, they can be frustrating, but they can also be invitations to pause, to reflect, and to re-engage, with this fresh curiosity.
It's like those unexpected detours that you take on a road trip.
Right.
Sometimes they lead to the most breathtaking views.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself searching for that elusive thought, remember that it's not a failure of your mind. It's more like a glimpse into its remarkable complexity. Embrace that mystery,
Yeah.
the meandering pathways of thought, and see where they lead you.
Who knows? You might just discover something amazing along the way.
Indeed. And remember, even, the most brilliant minds, they experience these moments, these cognitive hiccups. It's just part of what makes us human.
This has been such a mind-blowing deep dive.
Oh, it's been fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into this fascinating world of memory and communication.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, keep those minds curious and keep those conversations flowing. You never know what hidden gems of insight you might uncover.